This is Let's Get Writing, coming to you from Grand Falls, Windsor, Newfoundland, Canada. And we're so happy you're joining us tonight. I'm really thrilled tonight. I'm going to be talking about hiking trails in Newfoundland. And that's such a beautiful thing. I don't know if you've hiked Newfoundland. I hope you did. I hope this gets you interested. Here's the book, Hikes of Newfoundland. We go this way. There we go. And this is a book published by, I have to think now, Boulder Press, I believe, and Boulder Publishing. And my guest is going to be Katie Broadhurst. But just for a moment, I just want to take a minute and put you in the mood for what we're going to talk about. If you have not hiked, Newfoundland has some tremendous hiking trails. And the 4 authors of this book have actually compiled so many of them in such an easy to follow guide. It's pretty exciting. And I think where so many of us have spent so much time inside right now, the thought of being outside in the air with nature is pretty darn appealing. So we hope we're going to inspire you in that direction tonight. And just over my shoulder, you can see my very funky hiking boots. Now, people think of high maintenance, and high maintenance is a bad thing. I just have no idea what they're talking about. I think we all should have funky hiking boots. And if it inspires you to walk a bit more, why not? Now, without any further ado, I'm going to bring Katie up with me here and welcome her to the show. She'll be with us. Hi, Katie. How are you? Hello. Are you there,
Hello,
Katie?
I'm excited.
Oh, hi. Katie, where are you coming from right now? Where are you?
I'm in Steadybrook on the West Coast.
Excellent. Such a beautiful place. And I'm sure just right there along, there are so many wonderful hiking trails. But I did want to mention, when you wrote this book, you had 3 other people who were writing it with you: Anne Alexandra Fortin, Mary Smythe, and Fred Hollingshurst. And we hope that they're watching tonight and cheering us on. And it must have been wonderful to work together on a project like this. Just tell us all a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the initial way this sort of worked out was that we wrote 2 independent books back in 2014. And 6 years later, it was decided that we would compile all of that together into one comprehensive guide. So Alex and I worked very closely together on our portion, which was the west side, and Fred and Mary, of course, worked very closely together for all the hikes on their side, on the east. And then, yeah, Stephanie at Boulder Books were sort of our intermediaries tying the whole project together. So big hands off to Stephanie, our editor, particularly for orchestrating the whole thing.
Yeah, which would have been a lot of material. And before we go any farther, I just want to mention that compliments of Boulder Books, we have 2 copies of the hiking guide to give away. And the way that you can win a copy of the guide is you have to comment with your favorite hiking trail in Newfoundland. And if you're not from Newfoundland, just comment with your favorite hiking trail where you live. And the first book we'll give away tonight. Hopefully my assistant will alert me to comments, because I'm not that multi-talented to check out everything at one time. And the other book we have until Friday at noon for people who watch this on the replay. We wanted to be fair to everyone and give the live viewers and the replay viewers a chance to also have a copy of the book. And Katie, so you had the material before, and then you compiled it into one book. That must have been a big job.
Yeah. So for this version, the comprehensive hiking guide, we did have to do a fair bit of re-hiking. We also were able to explore some new areas because, of course, things change over 6 years. It was incredible how many new trails had popped up or networks had been expanded. So it was really fun to get out and revisit old favorites and as well as discover some new stuff along the way.
Katie, do we have an abundance of hiking trails in Newfoundland as compared to other places, or are we pretty much on par with everywhere else?
Well, I think we're pretty on par with everywhere else. The thing that I find with Newfoundland that's very special is that we have an abundance of wilderness trails. And that is something that is really fantastic. We also have access to a really big variety. I mean, if you live out in Calgary, you're always going to go to the Rockies, you know? So you're going to be hiking up or down all the time. But here on the island, I mean, you can go up and down mountains, but you can also walk along the coastline. You can go into big valleys and fjords. We just have so much variety, which is something you don't get in a lot of other places. We also have access to trails where you can be by yourself, which right now is especially important, but all year is just really amazing because we aren't a densely populated place. And for me, that's what makes Newfoundland really special is you can go on a trail and feel like you just have the whole place to yourself. And that's really magical.
I'd have to agree that we do have that opportunity to get away from other people on the hiking trails. And I've been on a few. Normally, this time of year, I'm on a yoga retreat in Port Rexton, and I've hiked their trail. I can't think, you probably can remember the name. It's a different name.
Gerwin.
Yeah, that's the one. The Kerwink, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's almost like being in an Alice Wonderland book when you see the way the trees are winding around each other. And I think that's a direct reflection of the harshness at times of our climate, because it's I don't know how to describe it other than it just reminded me of a fantasy as I walked through parts of that trail. And then of course you see the ocean. And I've also actually climbed up to Grossmorn Mountain to the top of that and around the other side.
Nice.
Blew a good pair of sneakers out on that trail. When I came down, the bottoms, the soles of my sneakers were flipping and flopping. So you make recommendations in your book, and they're really good ones. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the book is not just about the trails, as you just mentioned. We have lots of recommendations. So in the back of the book, we have a checklist for your day hike. So those are all the things that you should be taking with you when you go out. We also have opportunities for further information and resources. So to go check, for example, like directly with the East Coast Trail, if you need a map. So you can get really great resources. We've also put in lots of information about, things like wildlife that you might encounter while you're out hiking, and just other general tips sort of about planning to go out for your hike and things that you should do in advance. Like always tell someone where you're going.
Mm-hmm. And especially your mother. But my daughter
Yeah.
goes hiking all these places, and sometimes I can't get hold of her, and I'm thinking like, okay, where is she? Where is she? But especially your mother, hikers, you always got to tell your mother where you are. But this is so true. I'm making a little joke about it, but it is so true that people need to know where you are, because it is very vast in places, and it is very much a wilderness. I know myself, I have encountered moose when I'm on my snowmobile, and up close and personal, there they are. And you have to know what to do when you come in contact with wildlife. And I'm thinking it would be, I'm trying to think, on the top of Grossmorn Mountain, it would be caribou that we saw up there when we were on the top. And so you really can't say around any turn you could encounter wildlife. And you've got some great tips in there. Why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, sure. So, for example, moose is a really common sighting, and like with all wild animals, the best thing that you can do is just always give everybody their space, right? So we're getting really good at this right now with our social distancing. So let we just apply that on a bigger scale to all wildlife. We just want to have a nice big area between us and them. Moose typically, interested in you. Same with the caribou and the bears. They're just doing their thing, and if as long as you don't encroach on their space, they'll often either stay where they are and let you pass, or they'll move on directly on their own. They pretty much want nothing to do with us. Um, in some cases, you may encounter an animal that's showing different behavior, and at that time, you do have to just sort of go with your guts and, back off. Perhaps you'll have to leave the area. I was hiking in Grossmorn Park on the Stuckless Pond Trail one time by myself, and came down over a little hill, and there was a big male moose standing on the trail. And this was in October, so right in the middle of the rut. He was eating. He was looking right at me. I almost felt him looking at me before I saw
Mhm.
him looking at me, kind of thing. And I just stopped and froze and was like, oh my gosh. And my heart rate just jumped and everything just happens, right? You have that like fight or flight response. And I just dropped my eyes because I didn't want to like show him that I was making eye contact, which to animals is often a sign of aggression. And I just started to back my way up the hill, and I kind of popped myself behind a tree, and I just watched him, and he just kept eating. So, he wasn't irritated at all. But I decided right then and there that I was not going to be finishing my hike this evening. I was turning around and going home.
I don't blame you. I'm pretty sure. I'm not even sure that I would hike by myself in Newfoundland. I think it's a little too exciting for me. I mean, you can go along and you're making noise as you go, so a lot of the animals hear you and have a sense that you're coming, and you don't see a lot of them. But on the odd chance that I would see and be that close by myself, no, not going to happen. You're a brave girl.
Well, we all have a different risk tolerance, and that's just something that we all do. You hike where you're at, right? So
Mhm.
that definitely is just a piece that, yeah, we all make a different decision based on your comfort level, your experience, and just different tools that you have in your toolbox to go out into the wilderness.
Absolutely. And that's a very good point. You hike for what your ability is, and you are an adventure coach and guide. So that gives you a lot more ability than a lot of us. Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, sure. So I've been an adventure guide for over 12 years, and I've been really, really fortunate to have shown some amazing people around the island of Newfoundland. And doing both day hikes, trips, so guiding like the long range traverse, for example, as well as day hikes at Grossmorn Mountain and other day hikes up the Northern Peninsula to go and do some iceberg hunting. And in my role as an adventure coach, that's predominantly done through my blog, which is outdoorsandonthego.com. And I also have a Facebook group called Outdoors and On the Go Training. And that's where I regularly run Workshop Wednesday, which is an hour session every Wednesday, which is designed to be a skill building coaching feedback session for anyone who wants to join. And I teach things like navigation skills, or how to choose a pair of hiking boots, how to fit your backpack, what should be in your first aid kit, things like that. And right now I'm actually running a bigger version of that, which is called the Take Your First Hike Challenge. And it's a 7-day workshop, 1 hour a day in the evenings. And I sit down and I'm going through my entire training process on taking somebody who's never ever hiked before and making sure that they're prepared with the skills and the knowledge, as well as the gear and equipment to take with them to go out and take their very first hike ever. And for some people in this group, that first hike ever could be 1 hour around, the Cornbrook Stream trails, for example. And for other people, it might be attempting their first ever solo hike. So it's something for everybody.
Yeah, actually, I was on your blog, and there's a lot of great information there. Everything from binoculars to take when you're hiking, all kinds of tips. And so I've got the name here on the screen, Outdoors and On the Go. And I think you said .com. And so if people are looking for information, it's a great resource. And I did see that Take Your First Hike challenge. What a great idea, because if people haven't been accustomed to hiking or, walking in nature, having that kind of support to make that decision would be so great. And do you find that have people reached out to you? Are there people actually taking you up on this challenge?
Yeah, there definitely is. The group before this edition of the hike was about 100 people, and now we're almost doubled. So we've had almost 100 new people join us just in the last 3 or 4 days, all keen to come and learn more about hiking. And some of these people are brand new, and they are looking for that coaching and that support to be able to go out and take a hike. Everyone's getting a bit stir crazy after all. And other people are joining us who are very experienced hikers, and right in there also, supporting this community by sharing different resources and taking pictures of some of the extra things they might take out with them when they go hiking. It's become a really vibrant space, and I'm just absolutely thrilled at the turnout. And yeah, there are definitely people up in the game with the challenge. One lady is going to attempt her first solo hike on a small trail close to home, and other people are going to attempt their first hike ever, and maybe with their kids. So that's really cool that they're not only starting themselves but introducing it to their whole family. So I'm really honored to be able to provide that sort of space for people to try something new.
It's absolutely amazing, and to have that resource and to have your support is it's really nice. It's great that, especially now, we've all been so close to home, that if this really opens up and we can get out in the fresh air, what an amazing way to go. One thing that I was just thinking about, sometimes, well, when I'm over in Europe, I see a lot of people, not that I'm there right now or anytime soon, but you see them walking with the ski pole, the hiking poles. Very, very popular over there, and I haven't seen it as much here. What's your take on that? Are they a good thing to have with you?
So there's a few versions of walking with poles. There's Nordic walking, which is actually like a fitness type of thing, where you kind of power walk and you use the poles to more or less give your arms something to do. And then there is, of course, having poles as a hiker. And I think they're an excellent tool. I have a few pairs myself, and I do use them both for big day hikes, and especially for when I'm trekking and I'm carrying extra weight, like that 30 to 40 pound backpack that you see behind people. Because what it does is the pole sort of forces you to have good posture. Okay. It forces you to also use your arms. I find my hands swell quite bad when I hike, and the poles keeps the swelling out of my hands. Or in the winter, it actually keeps them really warm because you're pumping blood while you're moving your hands.
Mm-hmm.
But poles are excellent for balance. So if anyone is, out walking and they're feeling unsure or unsteady on their feet, having a pair of hiking poles can be a game changer. And you might be like, silly, but no, they're really, really awesome. I mean, look at all the animals out there that have 4 legs, right? There's a ton of them. So that's kind of what we're mimicking. We're mimicking adding 2 extra legs and being able to balance yourself a little bit more. They're also really helpful for propulsion when you're going uphill. You can place them back behind you and give you some extra push to go forward. And they can be really great, even more so for coming downhill, because you can put them down ahead of you and then lower yourself towards your poles. And that takes a lot of strain off the knees and the hips. So if anybody does have or finds any knee pain or hip pain, just while they're out hiking, then I would definitely recommend trying out a pair of poles and just go on YouTube and watch a couple of videos on how to use them. There's a little bit of technique that goes with it. And then after that, it's just practice and getting used to having them in your hands.
Yeah, I like working with them. I'm going to try some of the things that you have mentioned as well, and they're also collapsible. So they can be pretty compact. If you don't want to use them, just pop them into your your backpack, and there we go.
Just like that.
Exactly.
I just have my kit all together because our session last night in our Facebook group was all about your gear and going prepared. So I talked through my backpack and everything that I carry with me when I hike. And this is where my poles go when I don't need them. But they're easy enough to just grab and, straighten out to get in my head.
Hi. You froze up for a minute there, and I think there's so many people online right now that this is what we contend with at times. But everyone out there understands that, don't you guys? We're doing our best to bring the show to you. Okay, so you had that hiking pack there. What other essential things do you like to keep in it?
Yeah, so I always talk about the 10 essentials, and the 10 essentials are, well, a backpack. You need something to hold all your other 9 things in, of course. Doesn't need to be big or fancy or anything. Just, a couple of straps and ideally something to go across your chest to take the weight off your shoulders. You should always have a whistle or some form of communication other than just a cell phone so that people can hear you, find you, or you can call for help if you were to need it. You should always have water or food. So this is a hydration pack hose. This is just a really convenient way to kind of sip while you're hiking. But you can, of course, have a water bottle on the side or down in your bag. You should always have a first aid kit with at least the basics, so you can take care of little blisters, scrapes, bumps. I like to carry a little bit of ibuprofen, that kind of stuff along. You need to go prepared with the right kind of footwear. So you should ideally be wearing a pair of shoes appropriate to the terrain. So a pair of sneakers might be fine for the trails in and around, the Cornerbrook Stream trails, for example, or something like the Western Brook Pond Access Road walk. But for most other hiking trails, it's best if you have a hiking style shoe or boot that just gives you more rigidity, more traction. And for a lot of places in Newfoundland, waterproof footwear is really, really essential and just makes you so much more comfortable. You should also have clothing that's appropriate for hiking. So think about like you're going to the gym, you're going to be sweating, right? So you want to make sure that you're wearing something that's going to help you manage the moisture. So nothing cotton. Anything else is pretty much fair game, just not cotton. And you want to have rain gear. This island is a wet one, so a good rain jacket and ideally a pair of pants to go with it, so that if you're out and the wind picks up or it starts to rain sideways, like it often does, you can throw that stuff on and be sheltered, and if not perfectly dry, at least warm, because that's the most important thing at the end of the day. And then, you need to be able to stay found while you are out and adventuring. So you need some way to know where you are, and that can be using a map, a paper map. That can be using an app on your phone, such as All Trails or Topo Canada or Topo Maps Plus. There's lots of great ones out there. And a compass is another great thing, or a GPS unit if you have one of those. And then you also need to just have some stuff in case you are to spend the night. It does happen that you maybe get geographically misplaced and it gets dark, and you want to be ready for that scenario. So you need to have a headlamp or some kind of flashlight. And I would recommend a way to start a fire. So lighter, matches, and a little thing of, I like dryer lint, but you can get those little quick start little bricks and stuff and carry that with you. And then from there, layers to stay warm if you were to have to spend the night. A sweater, a down jacket, some vests, maybe mitts, and a hat still for this time of the year. Honestly, I always hike with gloves and a hat in Newfoundland all around. So that's the basics.
Pretty much it. And you've covered it so well, because the weather can change so much, and there's nothing worse than walking with wet feet. And of course, you need to have a copy of Hikes of Newfoundland, which is all these pointers. I believe you have everything in this book that would take someone through some great options. How many? We have more than 100. Let me see. We're almost wrapping up here. We have, I'm sure, but I'll say 157.
157. Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing, and the photography in there. And the trails are all mapped out. I'm just going to hold it up. It's really wonderful. People can see there. And so pictures of where you're going, what it's going to be like, and little write-ups on the trail itself, what to expect. So to me, it's the ultimate guide. And you guys have done such a good job putting this together. Before we go, I did say that I'm going to let people know who may have won a book. So I can see posts here on my page. So I think I'll go with the first one, which was Chloe Hewlin, because I'm on my own here. I can't do a draw. So I'll just go with number one. So Chloe, Boulder Books are going to be sending you out a copy, your own copy. And she says her favorite hiking trail on the West Coast is the Gravels in Port-au-Port. Are you familiar with that one, Katie? Yeah.
Very much so. It's one of my favorites. And when I have family come visit or friends from away, I always take them there because it has beautiful seaside. You can see the Lewis Hills, and there's an incredible amount of fossils there. So it's just really, really special.
Beautiful. Well, look, thank you so much. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour. There's so many things to cover, and I really appreciate your time. And again, what I'll do for anyone else who's commented, we'll just roll you into the draw for the next book by Friday at noon. And anyone on, Chloe says, awesome, thank you so much. Anyone who's watching on the replay, we would love to know where you're from. I've got the globe up behind me over the shoulder, where in the world you are. And please give some thought to come into Newfoundland when things open up again and checking out the hiking trails. And Katie, thank you to you and your co-authors and to Boulder Books for making this show possible tonight. Really appreciate it. And I hope one day I will run into you on a hiking trail. You still there, Katie? I think
that would be fabulous. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you. And folks, we're going to have a link below the show where you can order your book, your very own copy. So be sure to check that out. Have a great day, guys, and thanks for checking out. Let's get writing. We'll be here again next week. And I'm going to have Dave Delaney, who's a blogger, and he's down in Memphis, Tennessee, but he's a Canadian. So hang around next week and we'll learn all about blogging. Bye for now. Have a great night. Bye, Katie.